The Mandela Z mixed demo just dropped on Friday Night Funkin', and in this video, I want to explain the backstory of the Mandela's catalog, and then I also want to explain the backstory of each of the characters that we actually get to see presented in the mod. Just a fair warning, Mandela's catalog is a bit creepy, so if you don't want to be creeped out, get out of here now. Now, the first important thing to know when talking about the Mandela catalog is that in this universe, there are things called alternates. And basically, alternates are like these skinwalkers or these creatures that can basically take on human form, but if you look closely, there's always something a little bit off about them. What this means is that there's usually something that's very inhuman about them, very uncanny valley type. This means that maybe their eyes are too large for their head, maybe their head is too large, maybe their arms are elongated or their legs, but there's something that just isn't human about them. With that being said though, the true threat of them is that they're very intelligent and they usually try to use manipulation in order to get you to do what they want, or more likely to get you into a compromised situation. And just to be clear, they're not trying to rob you, they're not trying to just scare you. If they catch you or if they corner you, it's to take your life. In this universe, the authorities basically just tell people if they can, just hide from them and don't try to make any type of contact with them, because if you talk to them, you run the risk of actually being manipulated or tricked into doing something that you don't want to do. And while it's dangerous to go up against them, technically they can be taken out if you're clever enough to actually catch them off guard, or you just have a powerful enough weapon. Now, this is kind of where our first two characters come into place in the mod. We see Mark and we also see a character named Caesar. Now, in the original story, Mark and Caesar were friends, and one night Caesar calls Mark and tells him that his mother has had some type of panic attack or has actually been attacked, so he takes her to the hospital. Now, Caesar asks Mark to come over to his home and turn on his cameras and also check his alley just to make sure everything around the house is good. Now, even though Mark knows that there are alternates in his reality, he still trusts his friend and he goes over to try to make sure his house is secure. Everything seems to be fine when he's actually at Caesar's house. Things don't get bad until Mark gets back home. And that's what we actually get to see in the Friday Night Funkin' mod. Caesar, who we learn later is actually an alternate, meaning that the alternate probably took out him and his mother, follows Mark home, and Mark basically barricades himself in his bedroom and he's trying to keep the alternate from coming in. Now, they don't actually show this in the Friday Night Funkin' mod, but ultimately Mark is trapped in his room for days with no help coming. Not even the police will actually answer the phone to come to his aid. So Mark is basically left with two options. He can try to fight his way out, or he can take himself out. Now, I truly believe that Mark would have stood and fought if he wouldn't have found out one critical piece of information. Some of you may have noticed that during the battle between Mark and Caesar, there was another character that popped up. That character's name is actually Gabriel, and it's supposed to be based off the Archangel Gabriel. Now, if you're like me, you probably thought that alternates could only take on the form of humans, but Gabriel obviously proves that that's not true, because he takes on the form of an archangel. And if that isn't bad enough, he basically goes around and he becomes a false prophet, meaning that people think that they're praying to the Archangel Gabriel, but they actually are praying to him. And Gabriel even has a quote where he says, "I will fool the shepherds, I will know their greatest fears, I will know their greatest fears." And as Mark is writing in his journal one night, he finally realizes that he is not praying to the real Gabriel or to real angels, he's actually praying to an alternate. And this causes him to believe that Christianity is all a sham, and that is why he gives up hope. And instead of fighting his way out of his room, he ends up taking himself out. And while it is sad, of course, to see somebody lose their religion, it's even worse when you consider the fact that Mark is only 17. He's just a kid. Now, there is a bit more information about Gabriel, especially revolving around the fact that he manipulates historical biblical figures like Noah and Mary, but I don't want to get too deep into the Bible because YouTube has gotten so weird with what they will demonetize, what they won't, and what you can say and what you can't, so I'd rather stay away from the Bible. Now, in the next part of the mod, we see 4 people on the screen. We see Mark and Caesar, of course, but the people at the bottom are actually Adam and Jonah, 2 people that you may not be very familiar with unless you got fairly deep into the Mandela catalogs. Now, Adam and Jonah are part of a group called the Bythorn Paranormal Society, and they're basically like a paranormal investigation group that's supposed to operate in that county, but they'll go out as far as Mandela County. And it seems like such a weird thing in this universe because they are very aware that alternates exist, and they're still willing to go out and do these investigations for what is not really a whole lot of money. In their actual video, a woman gives them a call and asks them to come investigate like a ghost cat, and she says, "I'll give you $500 a night if you come and stay for 3 nights. That's $1,500. Now, even in the world that we live in now, somebody giving me $1,500 to come to their home and stay for 3 nights sounds like a trap or like some psycho trying to get me cornered in a room. But in this universe where there's literally alternates who are trying to trick people, this just screams trap. But Adam and Jonah decide to go because it seems like they are very down on their luck. They don't really have a lot of money, and it seems like they've even turned into doing petty crimes in order to kind of stay afloat. And something else that we find out by watching some of the other videos in the catalog is that as a baby, Adam was actually kidnapped through the television. So he grew up without any parents, specifically without a mother. And what he is doing now is trying to find his mother. So he takes all these odd jobs and all these weird occurrences in order to see if he can get any information about his mother. Now, the sad part here and what he doesn't know is that his mother actually unalived herself when she saw him get taken through the television as a baby. She literally went mad and just could not cope. So he's looking for a woman that he will actually never be able to find. Now, when Adam and Jonah get to this house, they should have known that something was up to begin with, but they go into the house and Adam starts to notice that there are voices going on in the house. The voices start off as like his friend Jonah basically telling him, "Look out behind you," right? And Adam believes that his friend is playing a joke on him. And for Jonah's side, he actually hears Adam doing the same thing, basically. Now, at this point, the two of them definitely should have realized that something was wrong, but they're both so arrogant that they just keep on going, right? That is until Adam finds a door that was previously locked, and he's able to go down that doorway now. Now, Jonah tells him straight up, like, "Hey, I'm not comfortable with this. I feel like if you go down there, you will not be coming back." But Adam is so hell-bent on finding information about his mother. And up to this point, they have gone through many places like this and been in many situations like this and gotten away without being harmed. So he thinks very highly of himself and he doesn't believe that any harm will come to him. Now, when Adam gets to the bottom of the stairs, he finds out where that cat meowing sound comes from because there's actually a television with a cat on it. Promptly, the television switches to a man, which is obviously an alternate. And the alternate basically tells him that nobody knows that you're here, you've fallen for the trap. Now, we don't get to see what happens to Adam at that point, but we know that Jonah leaves him and drives away in the car. And while Jonah seems to have a lot of regrets about leaving his friend, he definitely doesn't turn back, at least not in that video. Now, when we look at later videos in the Mandela Catalog, though, we do get to see that after some time has passed, that Adam does actually come out alive, and it seems that Jonah is the one that ends up disappearing, even though he's the one that left with the car. Now, the thing that I find most interesting about this is that when Adam actually leaves that house, he has to start walking. And a couple of hours later, he finds the car that Jonah left in, abandoned on the side of the road. Adam takes the car and he just drives off. He doesn't look to see if his friend is around or if anything happened to him, which in a way I kind of understand. I guess he did abandon him in a way. But even still, you would think that if they were friends, Adam would have at least maybe looked around to see if the guy was there, if he was okay. But later on, when Adam is talking to a character named Sarah, he basically tells her that he doesn't have any friends, and that Jonah thought that Adam was his best friend, but the feelings were not the same. He turned out to be a pretty cold-hearted character, but in a way, I kind of understand it. Not that I'm saying that it's right. Now, there are a couple of cool free play songs, one of which actually shows the three victims battling against Caesar, aka the alternate. And while we know that this never actually happened in the original catalog, it is kind of cool to see these three actually come together and try to hold their own against this creature. There's also another song where we get to see Mark running away from the alternate, and I'm not sure which part of the story this actually relates to, or if it's just something that the developers added in there just as a whim. But I knew that in the original catalog that Mark was considered to be very paranoid, so it could just be him having one of his episodes where he thought something was chasing him, or maybe something actually is. And I think that's one of the cool things about the Mandela catalogs, that each of these characters has such a deep backstory that a lot of stuff is actually possible when you're making a mod like this. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this video on the screen here. Subscribe to Diddy, become a member of the Orseofkorse, and we'll see you tomorrow with another video. Peace, peace.